And I swear I turned it off, but I turned it back on.
You see, we're still discussing how we're going to do this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Nightcap. I'm Roy Potter, and my guests are with me. Michelle, you'll recall her from a week ago, talked about ITEs and the different things with the Nephilim and the fallen angels and things like that. And we have Dan, who is also here to help us talk about the instruments that are used for this type of work. He is actually a paranormal investigator, has done it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And but he's never been on a live camera before, so he's having a little bit of trouble. Actually, he's drinking some of my family label here to loosen up a little bit. As I told you once here not too long ago, one of my viewers said, "Roy, you really ought to take Monograph's example and have a little hard drink during the program." And so, as you know, we had wine last time, and this time, it's something a little stronger. But when you're talking about a subject like this, it's probably a good thing. Now, for me, because I got to punch buttons and things, I'm just drinking water. I had my fun here about 2 hours ago. So anyway, we want to welcome you all here. This is going to be a very interesting program, and I want to preface it by saying this. This subject matter is another one of those things that divides people. There are those who will say that every situation that you have with a spirit of some sort is a demonic spirit, and there are those who will swear that they've met, anywhere from Michael the Archangel to Jesus himself. And there's a huge division between those two places. The fact of the matter is, in my view, and we're going to have Michelle and Dan talk about their views on this, my view, and the reason why we're doing this is because the fact of the matter is that there are good spirits and there are bad spirits. If you're out there trying to conjure up a spirit, in my opinion, you're asking for trouble. However, if you get visited by one, for instance, like John the Patmos did, and this particular spirit said that it was Jesus, if you'll remember in Revelations, he came to John on the island of Patmos, who was there, having been placed there for the rest of his life, basically. And this angel started to talk to John, and John, he was talking, saying, I'm Alpha and Omega. The spirit said that, and John gets down and starts worshiping it. And what does the angel say? He says, "Oh, no. Don't worship me. I'm a brother, one of the prophets like yourself." He even said that he had been a prophet before. "I'm one of the prophets, one of the brethren as you. Don't worship me, worship God." And then he continued to deliver his message. The point is that you look at the fruits of these situations. Just like we do here, we judge people by whether they're doing good things or bad things. And yes, you can be deceived, absolutely. But as long as you're applying the best that you can in the situation and you don't get talked into hurting someone, then you have a right to experience these things and to investigate them. And so that's what we're doing here tonight. I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, Roy, oh no, we can't do this. It's going to be too scary talking about this. I can't watch it because it'll be too frightening." But the fact of the matter is that this is going to be a very educational and kind of a fun thing too. Okay, so most of you know I have to ask how the sound is. I can see what the video is, but I don't know how the sound is. So if you all could give me a thumbs up if you think that the sound is sufficient, that's all we need, and we'll go from there. By the way, hello everyone as you come in. I already recognize a lot of your names, and I wish I could address each and every one of you separately, but that's not always possible. So people are giving me a thumbs up saying it sounds good, so we're ready to go. So I'm not going to be the first one to start out here. We're going to have Michelle talk about her ITEs again like she did before, and she's going to explain to us what those are. So take it away, Michelle.
So the last time we spoke about this, was it last week? It was last week.
Yeah, a week ago, last
Probably,
Tuesday.
yeah.
We discussed the ITEs, and I went over some of that information. So I'm just going to recap it a little bit here. I was just trying to pull it up because I thought you were going to do Dan first.
That's one of the things you'll remember. Even Mel Gibson said, you have those things where you change the script that gets people to,
Oh, gosh.
I thought it was just
impromptu.
ladies first.
Ladies first. There you go. Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can pull this up really fast. So basically, what the ITEs are the terrestrial. Okay, ITEs are invisible terrestrial entities. There is two different kinds. You've got the ITEs 1, which is the dark IETs, and then you have the IETs 2, which is the light IETs. And so while I'm pulling this up, I was looking into another video. Here we go. Took me a second to find it. I was watching another guy do a video on YouTube. I think his name is Gons, and it's, I believe, Face Like the Sun channel. And he was talking about the IETs, and he went through some of this information. So I went and pulled up this report, and it's from the American Journal of Modern Physics. And this is actually the wrong one. I actually want to pull up the real one so I can read it.
Oh yeah, the other one was a little
Yeah,
hard to see, wasn't it?
It was a picture of a video, actually. And so what these are, I'm just going to read you the abstract because it will explain it scientifically, and then we can discuss what they are.
And this is out of the American Journal of Modern Physics, ladies and gentlemen. So this isn't just some hodgepodge or somebody's ideas. These are provable events.
And it's published by Science Publishing Group. So they apparently detected some type of phenomenon on a telescope that they did, and they named this apparent detection via new telescopes with concave lenses of otherwise invisible terrestrial entities, which is ITE. And his name is Ruggero, if I say that correctly, Maria Santilli. And the abstract states, by using telescopes with concave lenses known as the Santilli telescopes, trademark and patent pending by the U.S. publicly traded company Thunder Energies Corporation, and I'm going to get to that again. Like I said last time, we review preceding evidence for the apparent existence of antimatter galaxies, antimatter asteroids, and antimatter cosmic rays. Independently from these astrophysical detections, we present for the first time evidence for the apparent existence of entities in our terrestrial environment that are solely visible via telescopes with concave lenses. While being invisible to our eyes and to the conventional Galileo telescopes with convex lenses, which entities leave dark images in the background of digital cameras attached to the Santilli telescopes. These entities are here called invisible terrestrial entities of the first kind, or ITE-1, or dark IET. We then present also for the first time evidence for the apparent existence in our terrestrial environment of additional entities that are also visible to telescopes with concave lenses while being invisible to our eyes, and to the conventional telescopes with convex lenses, which entities leave bright images in the background of digital cameras. These additional entities are here called invisible terrestrial entities of the second kind, ITE2, or also called bright IET. It is pointed out that both types of entities generally move in the night sky over sensitive areas, and their behavior generally suggests unauthorized surveillance. This paper has been motivated by the significance and diversification of the collected evidence, as well as available independent confirmations that warrant systematic inspections of the sky over our sensitive civilian, industrial, and military installations via telescopes with concave lenses so as to detect possible unauthorized surveillance. And that's a mouthful.
Yeah, and if I can interrupt here just for a second, you know how this is. Uh, Michelle was saying last time, "Gee, you didn't give me enough time to talk," and she's absolutely correct. But but I want to point out that if there are researchers out there, and I'm not saying this is true, but it has been noted that there's been some type of aerial activity of some sort over many nuclear installations, and that many of the nuclear weapons were disarmed because of whatever was going on. Now, some of you will know about that. I'm not saying that that's true, but I'm saying that we've heard about it. So those could be the good ITEs or they could be the bad ones. I'm not sure as far as how Michelle would like to handle that. But these types of things are happening. So what's the real significance of this then, Michelle?
So, as the last time I was here, I spoke a little bit about my son dying, and I had started researching all of this stuff, and it led me to. I threw away my Bible, like literally was okay. We're made from the Anunnakis and the Pleiadians and them fighting all this stuff. Anyways, I came all the way back around and had to go buy new Bibles and all of this stuff because I was like, well, they had to have a maker. So I figured out who these entities are. I call them the fallen angels. Some people call them the reptilians. Some people call them the Anunnaki. Some people, I mean, there's like many different names for them. Archons. Um, anyways, I believe these are the sons of God that are in the Bible in Genesis 6:4 who made the Nephilim. And the reason why is just from all the research that I've done. I mean, really, I can prove it, but there's smarter people out there than me that have already done that and done all of the work. So I just go with what I've learned. But I came upon that video and he was talking about this, and he also in his videos was talking about who these were. They are up in the sublunar area of where the moon is at. And as this said, they watch the night sky. So what's really important about this is that we can't see these entities all around us, but they're there. So that's kind of where, I don't know, do you want to add anything?
I have a really interesting takeaway from this actually, because it was the discussion between, that they brought up the difference between the convex and concave lenses. Our digital cameras are convex. They're not dipped in. They're
Right, yeah.
outward, so they're
Okay.
right.
Right.
So a lot of the the paranormal research that I've done, we're using digital cameras, we're using some Polaroid cameras. Well, all the lenses are convex. They're not concave. So that's very interesting that that's actually
Backward.
right. It's
Yeah.
So
That was
that
what
was a
I
good
found
thing,
really
yeah.
interesting about this article. Anyway, there's so much more to this article. It goes on and on, but it literally talks about where they are located. They are watching over us humans where we live. They are watching over the military. They know what's going on, and the military now is talking about, yeah, there really are UFOs and there really is
starting to.
things going on in our sky. That's them. I mean, can I prove it? No, but if you read Ephesians, what is the verse? Ephesians 6:12.
Yes, I was going to say 6:10 or 6:12, somewhere in there.
And I'll just pull it up and reread it. Let me see, because I believe that this is who they're talking about. I don't need that.
I really like the scientific aspect of this article too.
Yeah, well,
that
we
it-
needed
it
to bring
backs
this
it
up
that.
because this puts us in another realm. They could
Right.
still be demons, of course, like as
Well,
you're
they could
saying,
be both.
or they could be the other. And again, you find out which it is by your experience. But anyway, go ahead, Michelle, if you've got that up.
Oh, let's see. 6.
I don't want people to feel bad. As a matter of fact, she may be listening. I'm not sure. We weren't able to touch base, but we were going to have a lady who had an NDE on tonight, who was going to call in. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for us. But there are many people that have had these very significant experiences, near-death experiences, or they've had loved ones come and visit them or whatever. And to say out of hand that they're always demons is absolutely wrong, because that experience is for them, okay? And for you to make a judgment of it is wrong. And a lot of people say, well, no, you can't. There are always going to be demons. And I'd like you to show me the scripture, if you're basing this on scripture. I'd like you to show me the scripture that you're talking about. You won't find one. The problem is when you conjure them up, like when Saul was trying to conjure up Samuel the prophet so that he could get information through the witch of Endor. That's when you run into a problem. But these other visitations, for instance, you Christians, when the angel came, Gabriel, to Mary, what do you do with things like that? What do you do with the 2,000 saints that were resurrected right after Christ was and were walking through the streets? So there are a lot of other things going on here, or the angels that came and visited Abraham, one of which we understand was God himself. So these types of things do happen. And again, you look at the fruits. Not anybody who judges your personal experience that you've had as being demonic is wrong. If this thing leads you out to do something bad to somebody or even ruin your own life, that's a whole nother story. But that's still for you to judge, because people could do. I could turn around and ruin Dan's life. I won't tell you how, but I could, and so that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Okay, it depends again on the fruits. Please go ahead, Michelle.
So I was just going to read the one version of it. This one, I don't know which version it is. I can't see it. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Now, if you actually read that verse in the King James Version, let me see if I can find it. I'll just tell you, it just says in high places. So the two different verses, if you read it in the different versions, you've got one that could be, a mountaintop, or you have the version that I just read, and that actually is telling you they're actually located in the heavenly realms. So the Bible is in fact being correct about that. It's just that in some versions things are translated differently. So
and as I pointed out for you folks, this was after we did our show the other week. I pointed out to you that high places, okay, in the ancient Hebrew, it did mean mountains, it did mean upper places, but it almost always had to do with the worship of, some people say Baal, others say Baal. Baal is actually the correct terminology. In other words, Lucifer, Satan, etc. So basically, when it used the term high places, it didn't mean politicians, okay? It literally meant the worship of the demonic spirits, etc., in those high places. And of course, the prophets, the Hebrew prophets, and the different kings went in and destroyed those high places because they were places of some really debased things that were going on. So Michelle's absolutely right about that. All right, well, let's move on. So we're going to move on to Dan. Dan has quite a bit of experience in actually doing research in the paranormal, so I'll let you take it from there. We'd like to hear a little bit about the instruments you used, what you saw, and some of the places that you investigated.
So it's actually kind of a good segue with the lenses.
Make sure you talk up.
Yeah, sorry. Using the digital cameras. A lot of the things that when I was doing my investigations, it centered around orbs. As you know, those are the light orbs that you find in photos that obviously you cannot see with the natural human eye, and develop once you review the photo afterwards. The last investigation that I did was at the Hotel Colorado in something Springs, Colorado. It was.
Yeah, they're saying they can barely hear you. So
oh, really?
I'm going to raise the volume just a little bit.
Maybe I have to talk.
This is what we do when we don't have a producer.
Glenwood Springs, there we go. Thank you. Glenwood Springs, Colorado. It was built in the early 1890s. I want to say it was open near 1891, 1892 as a hotel for guests to start going to. It had a brief period where it was used as a temporary Navy hospital. So as you can imagine, there were wounded that would be taken in, and there was a morgue that was built in the basement. When we went, we were lucky enough to run into the groundskeeper, and who told us to come when he got off at 6, and he would give us the special tour. One of the most significant things that happened while we were there was a room that a Navy sailor and his girlfriend got into a fight. She was Native American. He, in a drunken fit, he smashed a vase over her head. One of the shards cut her jugular, and obviously everyone knows what happens when you cut that. So the hotel had a bit of a mess to clean up. So they re-wallpapered, they recarpeted, and then of course they opened the room back up to guests. However, the first guest that went into that room immediately walked out, walked back to the desk, and said, "We cannot stay in that room. There are stains on the wall and there are stains on the carpet." Which obviously they had just wallpapered and carpeted the place. So they tried it again the next day, and they came in and the wallpaper had already been rolled off of the walls and neatly placed on the floor. So, of course, naturally, I wanted to get a picture of this room, and groundskeeper let me do it. As soon as I walked in the room, I got one picture. It was a picture of a stack of chairs in the corner where she died, and my camera shut off immediately. We had charged our batteries before we went on this investigation, and there was nothing wrong with the camera. I stepped out of the room. I took a picture of the hall. Totally fine. I stepped back into the room, and the camera shut off again. So that was, to me, clear evidence that that room has, a lost, not a lost soul. What would you say? It's more
a
of
trapped soul.
Trapped soul. Trapped soul can't move on from that location, and so that room is still just a storage room at the hotel. As far as orbs were concerned, we saw many orbs when we were taking pictures at the towers because if you look at the picture of the Hotel Colorado, there's two bell towers basically on top of it. We got pictures up there of the groundskeeper said that somebody tries to ring a bell up there at night, and if you're on the top floor near the bell tower, you can hear it. So we got some pictures of the orbs there. But yeah, overall it was very, very fun experience.
Well, you used digital cameras. You were talking about EVP.
That's right.
So let's hear about some of the instruments that you were using to do this, and then tie it into the what was it, an apartment building that was down?
Oh, the Piccadilly, yeah.
Right.
So generally we used a digital camera. We also took a Polaroid camera with us because what we'd like to do is, if we took a picture with the digital camera in a room that was known to be haunted, as they say, or inhabited by a spirit, we would try to take a picture also with a analog camera like a Polaroid because that's a different exposure and whatnot. Again, with the lenses. If we reviewed the photo and we saw a orb, we would immediately try to do an EVP. So an EVP, if for those of you who don't know, is electronic voice phenomenon, and that is audio picked up on a recorder. We use both a digital recorder at somewhere between 20 and 30 megahertz, as well as a micro cassette recorder, because we always wanted to try to weed out whether or not it was something happening in the digital, recorder that might have been affecting their recording, or so that's why we had the analog backup.
So it does it at the same time?
Yes.
So just so that they know, is it in one device and you see like the two different things, or
Two
the
devices.
two different devices?
Two devices, and we would match them up after the investigation.
Okay, that's what I was missing.
Yes, for EVPs, we would always review the recordings after the investigation because it just takes too much time to do that during, and you might miss something, and
That
we
makes
didn't
more
want to miss
sense.
anything.
I might just add this. Some people are saying they're hearing some obvious, really strange sounds, like a movie projector or whatever in the background. What's happening here is the microphone, we've had to put it up above us, and so you're probably actually hearing the computers running. So I apologize for that, but it's just one of the little things that we have to deal with doing this kind of in the low-tech situation that I've got. So please excuse us for that. Okay, Dan, go ahead. Let's hear about the other situation.
So at the Piccadilly, this is an old apartment building downtown Salt Lake. And it's one of those ones where it comes furnished already. So one thing with spirits that I've encountered is you have furniture that's been there for a long time. It's got imprints from other people that have been there, people that are just connected to that place. Even if they pass on somewhere else, they still return to that area. I had some of the most fantastic pictures of orbs in that apartment. I mean, to the effect that you could make out the membrane around the orb, that it was a different color. Within the orb you could see shapes, sometimes faces, symbols at times. It was a very active place. We were on the second floor, and the night before, and you actually could probably look this up, there was we looked out the window and we saw somebody in a hoodie walk by. And of course we thought, oh, no big deal. There's people that walk down the alley all the time. But then we remembered we're on the second floor. There's no way that somebody could just walk by our window.
Oh, right.
The very next day, the building next to our apartment, it was a 3-alarm fire, possibly 4-alarm fire, and that whole complex burned down. We were told to move out of it for that time because it started to melt the brick on that side of the building. Oh, so I just thought it was really interesting that we saw that, identified it as that doesn't make sense because we're on the second floor, and the next day the building next to us burned down. So very, very active place.
And so you're speaking about the shadow figure.
Correct.
That kind of hits home with me, with my son. I've had many communications from him. Even some of you have probably seen the video that you recorded.
Yeah, we did a video. Michelle talked about her experiences. This was about 2 years ago now, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit longer, a little bit less than 2
that.
years. But I spoke about how I got a lot of messages from him. I still get messages. In fact, I got several last week. In fact, I think it was the same night I came here and I went home. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I get them all the time. And a lot of the visitation that has happened in my house from him, and he's not the only one that I've seen after they've passed away either or had experiences with, but when we do see him, and we know it's him because of the things that happen, like he would always walk up the stairs and my dog would sit and stare and watch him, and then there were things that we would do and we would talk to him, and you could see his shadow figure, like out of the corner, you're in your peripheral vision. One night in particular, I was outside, I was having a drink, and I had a friend over, and we were just talking, and of course I was probably talking about Morgan, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, we're at the table, and we're right where he died, because I haven't moved, I'm staying there, I have no weirdness about being there, but we're sitting there, we're having a drink, and it was like 12:30-ish at night, and all of a sudden I told my friend, oh my gosh, check out Nina. I had noticed that my black lab started noticing something in the trees. I couldn't see anything, but I knew that he was there, and I'm like, okay, Boyd, you gotta wait, just check this out, turn around, you gotta turn around, you're gonna miss this. And he turns around, and all of us, I said, watch, Nina is the same dog in the last video, the black lab. She's literally going to she's going to attack something. And all of a sudden she just starts barking like crazy in my tall trees. There's nothing there. We're both looking at it. And then at the same exact time, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just so trippy. All of a sudden you see this black shadow, and I tell everybody when I see Morgan like this or anyone else, it's like Peter Pan's shadow, the dark shadow. It's just the outline of them, and it's all dark. Anyway, so he and we both see Morgan's shadow come running across, but he's not, obviously he's not like walking on the concrete and the grass. He jumps, or he doesn't jump, he goes through my hot tub, and he goes around, and Nina, she follows him. And so we were faced in this direction. When he started running, we both flipped our chairs around, and we watched him go around where the hot tub is, between the swimming pool and the hot tub. and there's a hammock back over there. And I'm like, come on. So we both jump up. I mean, my neighbors already think I'm nuts, but we go hauling butt over there. And there's my dog just sitting there, like Morgan was sitting in the hammock. And it was like he was petting her under her chin. She was all calm, fine. She was no longer barking.
Did he used to do that?
Well, yeah, but she was his dog.
That's what I mean.
But the thing is Navy, his daughter, would always go out and talk to Morgan in that same area. So also, Morgan, he knew he would get my attention.
So it's attachment to that area.
Well, yeah, because my backyard is absolutely, it looks like, everyone says it looks like the Garden of Eden. And so it's actually, I feel like it's his happy place right now. So he does, I literally get visits from him all the time. Lights will turn on and off and things will happen. We'll be having a conversation and all of a sudden the doorbell will ring and no one's there. And I'll go open the door.
And it wasn't me.
And yeah.
I wasn't playing a joke.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. We'll be having a conversation. Like, I could tell you another story. I'll save it for after you because you need a turn. But I do have another one that's actually pretty amazing.
I like the segue into the shadow figures that are seen. Whether or not they're personal people that you've been close to, and obviously that's very personal.
Yeah, I just know it's him just because he lets me know every time.
Because of the behavior.
I don't see very many other people, their shadow figure.
So you don't see dead people?
No, but my little sister does.
Remember that movie?
No, my little sister.
No, I'm not saying people can't.
No, my little sister does. She's Rh negative, and she talks to them. I am not Rh negative.
That's why you asked about the blood type
yeah,
earlier. That makes sense. Okay.
And so she can literally see them. She knows they're there. She's lived in a few houses, but I can hear them, and they don't very often. That sounds really funny. I mean, like I've heard Morgan 3 times. I've heard a couple of other times other people, like my little brother. I've had many experiences with my little brother too. So
now, I want to interject here and ask a question again, and I'm being the devil's advocate.
Okay.
I completely agree, and I completely believe you, but I'd like you to explain to those folks, and you kind of did already, but what is the feeling that you get? What is it that lets you know that it is Morgan? What is the feeling? Is it something that you used to have when he was here with you, or is it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because a bad spirit can trick you with your feelings.
Okay, so that's what I want to know.
You don't go off your feelings. Like
yeah,
around here in Utah, I giggle all the time when somebody says, "Well, I feel the Holy Ghost and whatever." It's like nothing. It's not that. When they communicate with you, Morgan has always given me. Should I tell this story? He's always given me information so that I know
it's applicable to something
him.
that you're doing.
No,
right?
Okay, so I'll tell you the story. It's quite hilarious. So shortly after he died, I was getting messages and I was getting communication from many different people. I can't even believe how many people he was like, no, you have to go talk to my mom and you got to give her this message. Anyway, so one night I am completely falling apart. I am drinking a whole ton of alcohol and I go sit on this part of my bed and I am literally shredding and just falling apart at the seams. I'm having this long conversation with my son and all of a sudden I did feel him there. There's a chair behind me. So I'm looking at the wall. The wall is in front of me and I'm on this big California king bed and then there's a chair over behind me. And I'm sitting there and I'm pouring out my heart to my son and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, all of this stuff because my son died by suicide. And anyway, so I'd gone on and on and on and anyway, it was hilarious because all of a sudden I tell people this all the time, when he wants me to know something, it's like he puts a flashcard in front of my third eye. I don't see it with my eyes, but I see it in my head. And all of a sudden I just busted up laughing because I knew he was in the chair behind me. And so I start laughing and I'm like, you're in the chair right behind me, aren't you? and I look really ridiculous talking to the wall, and I'm just like tapping my fingers, on my legs, and I'm like, oh gosh, I think I've had a little bit too much to drink. I'm gonna go put myself to bed now. Anyway, so the funny thing is I went to bed, and on Monday, that was on a Friday, and then the next Monday, one of my friends gets communication from him all the time, and we were texting and talking about something that had come up, and he was giving me messages from Morgan, and all of a sudden, right before that we ended the conversation, he says to me, "Oh, by the way, Morgan says you look really ridiculous talking to the wall," and that was one of the things that I had said to Morgan that night on Friday. Was I bet I look really ridiculous talking to the wall. I really should put myself to bed.
So that's a verification.
Yeah, so he always gives me verification. Like one time he told me to write a book, and it was the book, you've read the book. It was a book to give to his daughter, so she would remember the dreams and the adventures that he took her on while she was
And
little.
she had some experiences too about
she's had so many.
Right.
I can't even begin to tell you all of them, but so one of the things that my son, so I was getting this message to do this book, and at the very end I'm told, make sure you write with blue pen, and I just started laughing, and I'm like, there it is. I did mortgages for 14 years, and one of the things that I was like so weird about was signing in blue, because you can't tell if it's an original if it's done in black ink. And so every time I would pick up a black pen, I'd huck it and I'd have somebody give me a blue one. So I knew that message was from him, because he knew I had this weird fetish about blue pens. So it's always been something like that to give me verification that it's really him. So I'm not committing necromancy. I'm not conjuring him up from the dead. He's making all the communication with me, and he's doing it through other people. And I don't need to conjure him up. He's there all the time. So I ask him to do things for me. If I lost my keys, I'll go, all right, Morgan, I need your help. Can you please find my keys? And I'll go back to where I've just looked like 10 other times, and there they are. I mean, it's not just me. It's all the people that have come to my house, that have visited me, that have come and spent time with me. I'm not crazy. I know they're not crazy. And some of the things that they've been able to see along with me, I'm just over here going, yeah, I hope you guys know I'm not making this up. And they're like, yeah, no, we saw that for ourselves.
Yeah, so that's a big one too. Is like the group validation, when you're not the only one experiencing it at the same time, and they're all, you have others that are seeing the same thing, and they might not say anything at that moment, but after the experience has passed, they're like, did you see the same thing that I saw?
Oh yeah, no one at my house is shy. We all see it. Even I have roommates downstairs, and two of them have experienced Morgan. The other one hasn't, but he's not hardly ever around. He goes out of town a lot. But the other two, man, it's hilarious, some of the stories I get from people.
And I might add here too, I hope I'm not interrupting you, but though I know there are a lot of folks on here that watch Alex Jones on InfoWars, and I want to remind you, he's talked about this a couple of times, where and Joe Rogan, who's a friend of his, who has one of the largest podcasts in the world. Some of these people have gone to different areas in Central and South America and have taken ayahuasca, and they all report seeing the same thing of these beings, these entities that come out of the forest, and they all see it at the same time. So it kind of verifies that same thing. They're each and some people say, well, they're reading each other, they're feeding each other. Well, however it happens, the point is that they're seeing the same thing, and they're explaining it. Now, I might throw in here as well, my wife Carol, I'm going to tell something about here. I hope she doesn't object to, but when she was in high school, of course, that was a time when LSD was a big thing. And she experimented with LSD with some of her friends. And she told me the story where they were up on this little hill, and they all took, I guess it was a little stamp, and you lick it. And I never did drugs, so I don't know. But she says that when she laid back, you can tell who has, right? So when she laid back, when she laid back laid back on the ground and they were watching, they all saw the same thing in the sky. And I'm not going to tell you what it was because it wouldn't be fair for me to say that, but they all saw the same thing. It changed their lives. She went on to become, she went into Hare Krishna for a while because she wanted to understand the spiritual side of it. Some of her other friends, went off on missions and things like that. So anyway, some very specific, wonderful things have happened. And I might throw in one of mine if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is going to go along more with the ITE thing at this point. I have some really good stuff to tell you, but I want to tell you about the ITE ideas here. I have a friend that's probably watching, and he can verify this. Of course, he's not going to be able to because we don't have a way to call in. But I was in Las Vegas. This was about 5 years ago. It was actually not too long before. It may have been right after. I'm not sure. Right around the Bundy standoff time. And I went into the Suncoast Casino. And I got to back up just a little bit. I'd been going to the golf course there locally, and had gotten to know quite a few of the people. One of whom was the son of a Russian scientist that had been working in the U.S. And his son, this guy, also had started working out at Area 51. There you go. And here's your first clue. So I had not told anybody that I was going to the Irish pub inside the Suncoast. They have a couple different places where they have live bands. I love live bands, so I try to find those places. And in Suncoast, they had two of them that night. One in the main showroom and one in the Irish pub. So I'm in the Irish pub. Hadn't told not even my friend that I was in there. Well, all of a sudden, here comes walking in this Russian dude that I had met at the golf course. He walked right up to me and he says, "Hey, Roy, we want you to come and join us in the other room." And I said, "How did you know I was here?" And he didn't answer me. He just said, "Just come on, And honestly, I don't know if they saw me in there at some other point, or I don't know. But here's the tricky part. So I go back to the showroom, and he's got these people lined up in the back, and there are probably 6 or 8 of them. And he's introducing me to them, and we're going down the line, and I'm shaking their hands. Well, I come up to this one guy who's kind of tall. He's about 6'2", and he just looks different. He just looks different. And as I reach to shake his hand and I get his hand, I suddenly see what he really is. I see his eyes go, he looks scaly, and he knows that I see him for what he really is, and he rushes out of the casino. My Russian friend looked at me, didn't say a word, we just didn't say anything to each other. That was a real experience. And there's another one, and some of the people that are on my channel have heard this. I don't think Michelle's heard this one, so you might see her get up and run out of the room. 1975, I'm at Fort Lewis, Washington. By the way, one of my daughters is sitting over here. She's heard this story 10,000 times. But this is, and I've talked about this before with you folks. It's been quite a while ago, but it's just one of the examples. It was one of the times when I really wanted to give up on YouTube, and so I just spilled my guts about everything. And this was one of them. But since the subject matter is apropos, I think I'll tell you again. So I'm at Fort Lewis, Washington. I'm going through the advanced camp up there for ROTC. So it's officer training, and it's just prior to when you get commissioned. So we're out on what's called a long-range reconnaissance patrol. They fly us into the area. We land in an LZ, and we get in a line, and we head off into that really thick old wood and forest up there. You can't see anything in front of you. And we're stumbling around. I'm the compass man. I've got my pace man in front of me, and I'm pushing him forward. And we've got, we have to have snake eyes on the back of our hats because well, we call them snake eyes. And you had to have a count sent back and forth along the line, like every few minutes, to make sure you didn't lose anybody. So anyway, we get to this road, and we knew where we were or what road it was that we came to, but we weren't sure where on the road we landed. So the pace man, he went to the left, I went to the right, and we figured we were within we figured we were within a click, that's 1,000 meters of where we were supposed to be. So I took the 500 this way, didn't find anything, and I'm on my way back. Now these roads they're probably 30, maybe 40 feet wide, something like that, and they're cut in the forest, but it was a full moon that night. And I'm walking along, but now mind you, this is officer training. Okay, I'm a trained observer at this point. As a matter of fact, I was a senior in college at this time, gone through all that part of ROTC, gone through all this training, and I'm walking along, and I've got full combat gear on, and I've got this M16 with a blank adapter, and I hear this noise over on the right side, on the left side of the road, and I can hear it's coming really fast, and I'm thinking, oh, it's another platoon, I better stop. I don't want to get caught out here, get sent back to the POW camp or whatever. So I froze so I could get a bearing on what it was, and that fast, that thing came out on the road. Now, it was about, for you guys here, it was about from here to the end of the room. Okay, so it was about 30 feet away or so, 25 to 30 feet away, and it was a good 8 feet tall, easily. I could see it was hairy. It wasn't a bear. I was a hunter at the time. I knew those things. This thing stood like a man, walked like a man, had long legs like a man, had a flat face, not a pointed snout. It came up over and it stopped in the middle of the road, and it turned and it looked at me. And I remember standing there with my M16 going, I only have blanks. Yeah. I only have blanks. And I kept saying that to myself. And it watched me as it went back down over into the woods and went away. And I've never run so fast as I did when I went back to the platoon. And I was going to tell everybody, and then I realized I couldn't. They'd have sent me to the infirmary. So I didn't say anything, but I wrote it in my journal, and it's been a story I've told to a lot of people since then. The point is, what was this thing? Why haven't they ever found bones, fur, skin? There are people that say they have. There are people that say they have photographs. I wish I had had a camera that night, but I've talked to some other friends, and the possibility is that these things that we call Sasquatches or Bigfoot or whatever may in fact, because we don't know everything, may be interdimensional creatures.
I think that they are, and actually the one that you came across and the reason why you survived that, it was a teenager.
Yeah, it could have been.
Because if it was the dad, they're much, much larger than that. The teenagers are about 7-8 feet.
Well, he was plenty big for me. It kept me in line, I'll tell you.
Well, see, I've studied all of this too, because I literally studied everything. But I didn't know that you didn't tell me the height or the last time you told me that story, or I learned that after.
Okay, well, either way, I'm glad that you've explained it, because I don't know, and I don't pretend to know. All I know is it did happen, and that's why I say, for you folks who say all these things are demonic, anytime you have any kind of a extrasensory perception of an event, you're dealing with demons. That's not entirely true, and I've got some other things I'm going to tell you after I give this back to them. So it's your turn again.
I want to throw something in there. I don't have the verse pulled up or anything. I don't even know what it is. But apparently in the Bible, which twins were and I can't remember that Esau,
Jacob and Esau.
Is it Jacob and Esau? Mm-hmm. And Esau was hairy.
Right.
So some people think that Esau's line is the
that's interesting.
Yeah, is actually because it came from, I don't know where. Some people say Cain. I don't know. This is just something that I'd heard. But apparently when Jacob was supposed to get the blessing, Esau got it, and they tricked him by putting the hair on his arm. Anyway.
Yeah.
I hope I told that correctly, but
yeah,
I don't know that. I've never verified it, but I thought that was a really interesting story.
Well, Wallace just asked if I could smell something, if there was a pungent odor. The reason why he didn't notice me, or she, or whatever, is because the wind was blowing kind of from, if the road's going this way, the wind was blowing, it wasn't even downwind, it was crosswind. Oh. So I don't recall smelling anything, but I was so scared. Honestly, it scared the crap out of me, I mean, obviously, if I didn't tell anybody, I knew that it would get me in trouble. I mean, I mean, telling it now, people are going to say, yeah, call that, white coats to come and get him, he needs some help.
Yeah, apparently they are raw or rotten meat smell whenever you come in contact with one. But we have
well, some people say I've got that, from,
have the
Dan's even
skin-
complained about that. Oh yeah, my daughter's saying, Roy, or Dad, you smell sometimes. Oh, go ahead and say it.
You told me that it did stink.
Okay, I don't remember. I don't remember
Okay.
that. This is
Yeah, she's heard the
1975.
story, huh?
Yeah,
I remember you told me
1975.
that it,
Okay.
it stank.
Yeah, I don't remember. All
Yeah,
I
they
know
have
is I
a very,
wasn't
very
out there.
foul smell.
Yeah.
But I also wonder about them being interdimensional. But I also think that so there's two different. Well, there's actually many kinds of them. They kind of go along with the stone giants and all these
Right.
different beings, like the monkey man and the dog face. Anyway, they're werewolves. Okay, that's what I was trying to get into was werewolves at Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalkers.
Yeah,
Okay.
the
yeah.
Skinwalker is actually a werewolf. But they call them Skinwalkers. Anyway, it's just really interesting, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. You've got the UFOs, you've got the Bigfoot, and then you have the Skinwalkers. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff here going on in Utah. We have a guy in South Jordan that's a cowboy that has been walking up and down
Yeah.
a certain street in South Jordan from like 2200 west to like 48, maybe 5600 west. Anyway, lots of people see him. So spirits are all around us.
all around us.
So Dan, we've been talking. What would you like to say?
Oh, I just oh man, there's a lot of stuff that I could say. Just to go back just a little bit to the shadow figures.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend, there seems to be one that follows him around everywhere, and it's not mischievous. I'm sorry, it's not demonic. It is mischievous because we identified it as a little girl. We called her Penelope because we could hear her laugh sometimes, and it was an apartment of all males. There were no females in the apartment whatsoever. But we would see, a long-haired figure peek out behind doors. One thing that she would like to do, as we call her.
Was this at the Piccadilly?
No, this one was at the I want to say it was Olympus Shadows, something Shadows. It's apartment on it's South Salt Lake area. We would always take our shoes off and put them in pairs by the door against the wall, toes against the wall. The next morning, all the pairs would be swapped.
Oh,
And there would be an extra little scuff in the carpet, like all the carpet, if you vacuum it, you can see the tracks of the vacuum, right? So similar to that, we would see an extra pair of shoes, just the scuffs, not the actual shoes, obviously, but they were clearly very small.
wow.
None of us had that shoe size, so it's just interesting. Even if they're not emotionally attached or related to you or whatnot, there's still some that seem to latch themselves or attach themselves to other people.
Yeah. From what I've learned, you've got 7 levels of heaven and 7 levels of hell, and then you've got where we are now. And all sorts of different spirits can be in any of those realms, including here. So, yeah, some get stuck here, some don't want to leave. Some, maybe Morgan doesn't want to leave yet.
Or they feel they have to help take care of you. It
Well,
might
okay,
be a
so
mission,
that's what I
right?
was just going to say.
That's
So
a
when
good
my
one.
little brother died, I was like 26-ish, and he stuck around for a long time. My oldest son, still to this day, well, before his brother died, because now he won't even talk about this stuff. He used to tell his friends, "Oh yeah, my uncle, he would sit there and watch us sleep. It would freak me out." But he was there when he died. So it was my dad. My little brother was sick with leukemia for 11 years, and he was Down syndrome. So he was almost 19 when he died, but he was still very much like a little kid. And so it was my dad, my mom, my sister, myself, my husband at the time, and then my 2 kids. We were all there. And so when he started breathing funny, I was like, "Okay, everybody stop. Everyone stop. He's breathing funny." And I'll run in there, because we knew he was going to die that weekend because he basically told us. And we threw him a great big party. And that night they gave him morphine, and then the next morning he did the breathing. Anyway, so we buried him. My kids saw him be buried, and I didn't know this, but like 5 years down the road, I was talking to my son. A dog had died, and he was all concerned about the dog. And I had told him, "Well, Max is in heaven with Matt, your uncle." And he looks at me and he's like, "No, Mom, Matt is not in heaven. He's not watching Max. I see him all the time at Grandma's house." And I had to call my mom up.
Whoa.
I'm like, "Mom, all these little weird things that are happening at your house are really Matt." And she's like, "I knew it." And I'm like, "I don't know why you needed my confirmation, because we all knew." So that was probably my first experience with, a spirit staying around to make sure everyone. I told my kids he was just there protecting the house. And then after I told him that
Well,
explanation,
guardian angels. I mean, Christians will believe in guardian angels.
Well, there he
why can't it
was.
be right? So
Yeah, he
there
was.
You are.
and so they quit seeing him after I explained, "Oh, he's just watching over. He's just making sure." But before that, they'd seen him get lower down into the ground, and then all of a sudden he's sitting there on the couch watching them sleep. So they were freaked out. But
Well,
yeah.
and I'm going to add a couple of more experiences of mine, and then we're going to have a short break because, as you can see, we're drinking a lot here, so we're going to need a little short break. But let me give you this information as well, because it's kind of interesting. As most of you know, my wife Carol died in 2008, and so I'm going to tell you a couple of experiences, and I've got a picture to show you too before we go to break. And hopefully, sometimes I have problems with the layering here with OBS, but right after she died, and this was over a period of several months. The first, although I had some dreams that were kind of, even today, I'm not sure they were dreams, but I'm not going to talk about those because of some of the messages that were involved. What I'm going to move to are some actual experiences, and the first one was I was in central Utah at a friend's house. They were building their ranch house in central Utah, and I was down there, and I was just doing some small work for them just to do something. And they had me staying in a small recreational trailer, and so I went in. I don't know if it was the first or second night I was there, probably the first night. And I went in, and the bed was made, and I got into the bed, and I'm laying there. And the door opens. Now I haven't fallen asleep yet. Okay, the door opens, and the trailer rocks because they're standing on the right. They're coming, and I'm thinking that it's my friend's wife, because she's always making sure that you've got what you need: water, blankets. Are you hungry? You go down there and you're going to gain weight just from being there because she feeds you so much. But I thought it was her, and I'm not going to say their names. They're probably watching this too, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. And so, I'm figuring that any second now she's going to say, "Roy, are you okay? If everything comfortable and all that?" But she didn't knock. Now this lady wouldn't do that, so that was a little odd. And there was this. I could tell that all of a sudden I could tell there was kind of like a mist almost, but it was my eyesight that was kind of trying to adjust. Well, this being came over, and one of the things that my wife used to do was because I only sleep with sheets even in the wintertime, she would pick up the sheet and bring it up and put it up over my shoulders. And that happened. The sheet picked up, nobody was there, picked it up, brought it up, then sat down next to me. And of course then I had this one-way conversation. There was no response, but that happened. Then not long after that, I'm back at the regular house, and I'm laying there, and one of the things that she would do is she would pinch my right hip and say, "We're joined at the hip." And I felt that little pinch on my right hip, and I said to her, I said, "Carol, if that's you, I'm really thick right now. Go talk to my youngest daughter." My youngest daughter was in the next room. She was my baby. At the time she was, let's see, how old was she? Had been about 11. And I said, talk to her, and then we'll go from there. All of a sudden, that little girl just started chattering like a squirrel. I mean, just talking. And I'm going, no, this can't be. So I get up, and I go to the door of her bedroom, and I don't want to disturb her, but she's talking, and she turns to me, and she says, "Daddy, Carol wants you to know she loves you." And she went back and she started, I'm like going, holy cow. Well, the next morning, I'm out there fixing breakfast and I don't want to, feed her any information. I just want to get it from her. So she comes out, she's got a little pink robe on. And I said, oh, hi, honey, how you doing? You sleeping okay? She goes, yeah, Daddy. I said, Daddy, I talked to Carol last night. And I said, I thought you did. And I told her what happened. Well, I'm going to tell a couple more here because these are pretty good, and then we'll have our break. I don't know if I should say that one. Let me think for a minute. Yeah. I think I'll pass on that one for right now. Let me show you another thing here. My doctor gave me a prescription. This was shortly after she died. And he wrote a prescription for me, and he knows I don't take pills. And, he says, well, you need to do this or I'm going to take away your benefits. And I went, what? That's a horrible thing to do. Doc, I don't take pills. And he says, that's the way it is. So he gives me the prescription, and I look at it, and it says cruise on it. So I was supposed to take a cruise. My daughter had already set it up. And so we're out on the boat. Now, I'm going to show you this picture, but let me tell you the background of it, okay? I'm going to go ahead and bring it up, but hopefully I can do this without messing up the whole transmission here. That's what these two pictures are up at if you look at the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see two pictures that are kind of cloudy. You're not sure what they are. Well, this is what they are. I'm out on the bow of the ship. That's the first day of the cruise. We got on the boat. We slept that night. I get up the next morning. It's a storm, and I'm out near the bow, and I'm taking pictures out on the bow. Now let me show you this here. You'll see that blue orb there. I'm going to blow this up even more. You see that blue orb there? Look in the center there. What I saw, I didn't see this when I took the picture. I saw it when I got home and I put it on the computer, and I saw the orb, and then I see this little cloudy area, and I go, what the heck is that? I didn't enhance it. This is not enhanced, okay? All I'm doing for you is magnifying it, all right? That's all I'm doing for you here is magnifying it. I'm going to try to magnify it a little bit more. Do you see that face in the middle there? Well, when I did enhance it, you can see her there. She's holding something in her arms. I don't know what it is.
Moving on its own.
Yeah. So I wanted to show you that these things are real. I'm not saying that's Carol, okay? But under the circumstances as it occurred, it very well could be. And we're looking through into another dimension, so it's not exactly clear. I'd show you a picture of my wife, but I've done that before. But it's close, all right? It's very close. The point is, that was there in that picture. And there you go with the digital camera again.
The camera,
It looks like
the lens.
a neck, and it's some
Yeah,
of the body.
it's all there. When you enhance the picture, you actually see almost all of her. And she's holding something in her arms. I'm not going to say what it is here, but it was very, very touching to me. So I want to end this segment of our program with that picture. And you're welcome to go ahead and use it. If you want to, copy it off of here and use it for your whatever it is that you guys feel like you want to do. Feel welcome to do it. It's not copyrighted. She gave me that experience for a very good reason. And this is what I say again. When you're in turmoil, God's going to open up some doors for you. He's going to open up a window at least and let you peer in and let them peer in back to you. And it's all for our comfort. It's happened before. I didn't conjure this up. It happened instantaneously. It happened without any effort on my part other than me taking the picture. Okay? So those are the types of things that I believe that can happen to you. And for somebody to say, well, that's a demon, that's my experience, not yours. You don't have a right to make that judgment. Okay? And that goes for everybody. Like this lady that was going to call in tonight who had the ND, the near-death experience. I don't know what her situation was. I don't know the story. But apparently it was pretty significant. And that's her experience. And it was meant for her as a message or as a comfort or whatever. And that's the case with all of these things. Okay, we're going to take a short break. I've got it's real short. This thing only lasts like a minute. So I'm going to let them go and as we play this, and if it ends before they get back, you and I will have a little discussion. Okay, so here we go. You guys might like this. It's kind of fun. All right, here we are. Okay, so they're going to be gone for a little longer. So let's have a little more of a discussion here on some particulars that you might find interesting. Um, a few weeks ago, I talked about Psalms 82, and a lot of you who aren't Christians or who don't like Scripture, I understand, but we're talking about this, and these things have happened throughout time. Dan, for instance, is very much into studying Egypt, ancient Egyptian history and archaeology. Obviously, you see how Michelle looks at things. She's very much into history as well. And of course, there's me. There's my situation with history and law and military and all that. Well, Psalms 82, the Bible can be looked at as at least a record. Whether or not you want to consider it to be actual history or not is up to you. But there are some things about it that are important. And Psalms 82 talks about the council in heaven, and that there were certain angels that were certain people, certain beings in heaven that were a problem, and that God divided them out. Okay, and He called them out, and then they came here, whether they were the fallen angels or their children, the Nephilim, or whether or not they were people like us who, for whatever reason, decided to take up that particular contrary position against what's good in this world. So this has all been talked about before. The good and the evil is here both in the physical and in the spiritual. Okay, so in Psalms 82, go read that and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then I just wanted to say one more time that there are those who will say that you can't have these types of experiences. It's always demonic. I've said that several times tonight. And as I've said, you don't want to be out there conjuring things up. I wouldn't use Ouija boards, or that type of thing. You can have a spontaneous visit, though, as for you Christians who know, Mary was visited by Gabriel as an example. But to say that somebody else, and I'm going to be kind of rough here on some people, to say that somebody can't have an experience and that it's real, certainly real to them, to attack them, I'm going to use some rough words here, to attack them and saying that it couldn't happen is sanctimonious, pious, self-righteous, unscriptural, false, hypocritical nonsense. Okay? So keep an open mind. If you have an experience and you want to share it, just be advised you're going to have people that'll accept you and you can talk about it, and there'll be those who attack you because that's all they can do. They haven't had the experience. There's a thing in the scriptures, and it talks about if you don't have the gifts of healing and the gifts of discernment and the gifts of prophecy, etc., which are spiritual gifts, it's because you lack faith. Okay? And that's all I'll say about it. Just don't put somebody else down for having these types of experiences and thinking that because you haven't had them, they don't exist. When you were in first grade, you didn't know anything about calculus. That doesn't mean that calculus isn't real.
Well, and I can add a little bit to that.
Sure.
Necromancy is actually where you're conjuring up spirits of the dead for purposes of like black magic, demonic things. So when they did sacrifices to the god Baal, there's the god Moloch. I think from what all of the things that I've studied is Moloch was a fallen angel, and Baal would have been the Nephilim. So kind of like I said this last time, Odin is the fallen angel, and Thor is actually the Nephilim, a hybrid human. Anyway, when the flood came and wiped out all of the wickedness on the earth, it wasn't all about the wickedness of the people. A lot of people misunderstand that because they misunderstand who the sons of God are. The sons of God were the angels that fell, and they procreated with the human females. And so the Nephilim were never an intended species, but they have supernatural powers. So the fallen angels and their offspring are supernatural. They're a different type of body than we are. And so when these gods were worshipped, they were supernatural. Of course, people treated them as gods because they could do all these amazing and wonderful things that humans can't do. And so when the flood came and wiped out the wickedness of man, it was also wiping out the hybrid humans, the Nephilim. God was trying to get rid of the bad DNA because they made a mess of his DNA, of the humans. So when people start conjuring up these spirits and doing things, you can actually do some black magic. So when I was talking about the 7 layers of heaven and then the 7 layers of hell, there are spirits. So you can have, semi-good, good, great, 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 fantastic, righteous soul all the way to the top. But the saying goes, as you go down, and your very, very worst demons are down in the 7th level. So they can conjure up, so like a shaman. I'm going to use this for example. Shamans can use both black magic and white magic. If they want to harm another person, they go down and ask the spirits in the 7th level of hell. But you have to be a pretty strong shaman to be able to do that. So it would be like a grandfather or a great grandfather that's had lots of years experience. So you can actually harm other people using necromancy, and that is why God has told us not to conjure up the dead, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to hurt yourself and hurt everyone else around you. Not to mention, you don't know if that's an angel of light or an angel of dark, just like the IETs. You don't know. And so until you know exactly what you're dealing with, like I've literally nonstop studied this topic since Morgan died. I feel pretty confident that I would be able to recognize who is who because I know a lot of their names and what they've done. But the thing is it's taking me nonstop studying to figure that out. But I didn't know that before Morgan died. I always heard at church, you can't do, candle magic, you can't do this and you can't do that, and all of these different things that you can do. But what I was never taught is there's also the good magic versus the bad magic. But until you know what you're doing, you might do something really bad and wrong, and it's going to come back and hurt you. So that's why necromancy is not good, because they worship these gods
Right.
after they were dead.
And you're inviting them in. It's like opening the door to your house and say, "Come on in."
Okay, so here's another. So like I'm going to bring this up. All of your vampire movies are all about these beings. And what is the vampire? So in Vampire Diaries, perfect one. What do? Every time a vampire comes to their door, they have to give them permission to come in to the house. It's the exact same thing and that so in necromancy, when you're conjuring up their spirit, you're inviting them in your house, and you may get 99 demons in your house,
Yeah, it's not
and you're
just
thinking
one.
you're just letting one in.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You
it's just like that demon that Jesus said to you. He says, "What's your name?" He says, "I am Legion." In other words, he had many around him. So you invite the one in and you get them. Tan, do you have to add some experiences here? Do you have anything like this?
I mean, whenever discussions like this come up, I don't know if I should talk about it, but I like to do my own cleansings and stuff like I did before this show.
Yeah, one of the things he did. You can talk about that. As a matter
Okay,
of fact,
I just
if
wanted
you'd
to
like.
make sure that would be
Oh,
acceptable.
sure, absolutely.
Um,
There are people out here I know that do that. So go.
Yeah, just a basic cleansing. Some clary sage oils, frankincense, which has been used for, I mean, millennia, forever.
Well, it was given to Yeshua when he was born.
Mm-hmm. So it was just a basic cleansing. Obviously, we're not trying to do any seances here, but I know whenever you are talking about
It's just like
the other
anybody else. You
world.
talk about somebody and they want to say, "Hey, what are they talking about me for? What are they
Right.
saying about me?" So, absolutely, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
so
absolutely right.
it's just more of a creating a space where we know they're out there. Obviously, we've seen them. We're just definitely keeping the bad ones out, and
Well, the bad ones
Yeah.
cannot. The bad ones aren't loose yet. The really bad ones, like in the Bible, it talks about Apollyon. He's known as Apollo, and Abaddon. That one, when he gets out,
those would be really
shit's
bad.
gonna hit the fan.
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to do. That's exactly
Right.
what's happening at CERN, for instance, and also the other things with all this pedophile stuff, where they're actually trying to invoke these evil spirits so that they can obtain them. And I did run into an evil spirit one time. Some people say that I am one, but that's and I think I told you guys about this. I was asleep one night and it was in the summertime, and I heard this heavy breathing, and it was slower than that, but you get the idea, right? And I finally woke up and I thought, it's a deer outside my window, or maybe a coyote or a wolf. I wasn't sure what it was because the windows are fairly close to where my bed was. And so, and I couldn't quite play, but it sounded like it was right at the foot of my bed on like if I'm laying on my back, it right on the right side. And I thought, what the heck? So I got up out of bed and I moved around so that I could kind of get an idea of where it is. And this thing is right at the foot of it's inside my room where I'm staying. And I'm going, what the heck is this thing? And I'm listening. I'm not afraid. These things don't fear me. As a matter of fact, they don't like me, so they just stay away from me. If you have demons in your house, just invite me over, and they're gonna leave. I don't know if it's my body odor or what, but at any rate, they have a real problem with me. So, this thing's there, and I'm listening to it breathing, and it's obviously kind of like in a rest state or a sleeping state. I'd say it's something like that. And I know people say, well, spirits don't sleep. Well, you don't know that, but at any rate,
That's true.
so finally, and I'm not afraid, okay? And finally I go, this is ridiculous. And I said, wake up. And this thing, I hear it, I go, oh, kind of like that. And I said, listen, if you're a friend, you're welcome to stay. But if you're a foe, you're out of here. And it was gone. That's the first one I wanted to talk about. And I want to talk about a good experience, though. And I wrote about it in my book. The second book I wrote, my autobiography. And I'm not saying that this makes anything special for me, but I'm saying that this is one of those times where I didn't ask for it. It happened. Mm-hmm. Just like it happened to Mary, where Gabriel shows up. Or for Abraham in the plains of Mamre, when God and those two angels come up before they destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? It was this kind of a thing. So, I was at Fort Ord, California. I was an officer in the Army. And the wind started blowing one night, and I'm going, what in the world is going on here? This is just crazy. It never blows like this. So I got up out of bed and I went to the sliding glass door that goes out to the front room or the front yard, and I looked outside, and I mean, it's just almost gale winds. I can't believe I've never seen this before. So I walk outside, And I can see the Monterey Bay, there towards the northwest, and the clouds are blowing, the wind's blowing, and I'm thinking, man, this is really, really odd. And then I hear this rumble, distant thunder, and I go, where's that coming from? And no sooner had I thought about it than it had traversed, I noticed about what I would consider to be half that distance. And I heard it again. It was louder. And I said, that's not thunder. And then it was right over me. And it was so powerful, there's no way I can describe how powerful this thing was. I mean, some people say, oh, Roy, you just had an epileptic seizure. Oh, no, 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 no. All right? This was no epileptic seizure. So I'm totally helpless at this power that is now surrounding me. It didn't feel evil. It was just plain powerful. And I'm basically balled up in trying to stop this thing. I got my hands over my ears, and I'm just kind of and then it's like the clouds parted. Now again, I'm not saying I wasn't scared. I was, but I didn't feel evil. There was no evil to it. As a matter of fact, it was what I would describe as a piercing love, is what I would say it was. So I'm laying there, and it's like the window opened up. I didn't look. I didn't see. I didn't want to. Okay, I was too afraid. But I felt it part. And I felt this being walk through that door, and he had two others with him. And it's definitely males. And this, after everything kind of settled down, it was I can't even describe to you what it was like. And he spoke to me, and I'll tell you what he said. It wasn't, hey, Roy, you're the best guy that ever lived on the face of the earth. Did you know that you were one of the apostles back 2,000 years ago? It was nothing like that. It was like, son, you got to get your act together. I'm going to kick your ass. Well, it's not what he said. This is what but that's the feeling that it came across. Okay, this is what he said. I'm not going to tell you what it was in reference to, but I'm going to give you his exact words. I remember it just like it happened yesterday. He said, my son, you must cease the blasphemy that you do. Then he turned to the guy on his right, and he said, be with him, guide him along. And then I felt the withdrawal, and they left. And I've seen those two angels that were with him at least twice since then. So those things can happen to you. And I don't care if somebody wants to make fun of me or not. It was real to me. I didn't go seeking for it. It came out of nowhere. Okay? So those things can happen to you, and I want to just encourage those of you who have had these experiences. Don't feel like you have to shut up. I mean, it's a private thing. Of course, you don't have to talk, but don't let people make you feel bad because you've had them. It may in fact be that they should feel bad for never having had something like that.
Well, they lack faith, and also some people, they don't know how to act around people that have these supernatural experiences, and so it scares them, and so they want to make you look like you're bad and wrong so that they look like they're normal. So
yeah, people naturally reject things that they don't know and are afraid. It creates fear.
It does. Now I'm going to take Dan somewhere where he wasn't really prepared to go, but he told me something tonight, and I'm going to put him on the spot.
All right.
Okay? Because we're going to talk a little bit now about regressive life experiences, or whatever they call. And you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, I do.
And if you feel comfortable enough,
I'm totally fine
I'd like
talking
Dan
about
to
it.
talk about this, because I know there are people who say, no, you're only born once, and then when you die you go to heaven, or there's no such thing as reincarnation. And again, you don't know that. So Dan, would you tell us your experience?
For those of you out there that have heard of this past life regression, there are people out there that have the ability to basically see where, I believe, where your soul has been, as souls cannot be destroyed. they are just
Energy cannot
right,
be destroyed.
right. And I see a soul as being energy, and it can't be destroyed. It always is. It's been there since the beginning.
You can rework it.
You can rework it. That's right. But the imprint of where it's been and the lives it's lived.
I think
will
you're
always
talking
be
about
there.
the Akashic records.
Yes.
Yes.
So there are people that can.
I told you she knows a lot.
There are people that can tap into that and see where your soul has been on this planet, this life,
Or any other
or
planet,
any other
anywhere.
planet. Exactly. The one that I had one done, just at random. It wasn't something that I went to pay to go do. It was a shaman that I met in my spiritual journey as I was discovering these things, and had a meeting with them and had a past life regression, and they saw as far back as they could see. Of course, there's varying levels of skill, I would imagine, in that area. That I was in Egyptian times. I was a high priest. Not sure for which pharaoh. Not sure for which dynasty time, whatever.
And if I can interject here, he has a fascination for Egyptology even today.
Well, that goes back to when I was a child. I mean, I was.
He has this on the table to prove it. He's
So-
got tons of this stuff.
Yeah, even as a kid, just always fascinated with Egypt. Just something about the symbolism and whatnot. But yeah, the regression showed that, told me that I had had some sort of experience as a high priest in Egyptian times. And one of the, after researching, I found that, a lot of the tools that they use during their rituals in Egypt involved frankincense, because that was a very prized.
That's why it was given to Yeshua. It was their medicine and much more than that.
Yeah. So, which was awesome. I hadn't actually told my wife about that at the time.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Secrets
but,
are revealed.
She told me at one point that even if I wasn't wearing cologne or deodorant, I always smelled of frankincense. I could not smell it myself, but it's just apparently my natural.
And it smells
odor.
delicious.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it
Sorry.
just kind of tied. It just kind of tied
you
together.
No, she's just sitting over here.
It's kind of, it tied into the whole. It made me more of a believer that's my faith, and that is true. That the soul's there for forever. It just is, and we past lives I believe are true, and we've lived many, and we will live many more. We
Well,
won't remember
Yeah.
always, of course, but
I have no proof of it in the scriptures anywhere that I've ever seen. Some people have tried to give me verses, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I believe that. But I have had people tell me about some of my past lives, and I'm like, that's really interesting why I am where I am today. And so, yeah, I feel like I picked my life. I think we pick our life every time, and the things that are going to happen, we have a soul contract and ways to learn throughout our experience. So I've just never figured out how to tie it in with the way I believe about Yeshua and him coming again in the second coming. Maybe we've had to spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives on this earth in order for us to grow and to become like him. And so it takes that many lifetimes, but we're coming up to the end of our schooling, and we're going to either graduate or we're not. That's the only way I can
that schooling,
fit it
that schooling
together
part.
with how the Bible talks. And there is a little bit of time travel in the Bible, and there is also a little bit of some people think reincarnation in there, but again, I don't know where those are. I've had
We
lots
can
of
talk
people.
about that sometime.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it here, but we'll definitely talk about that sometime. As far as your lives and feeling those things and knowing about them, I've talked a lot about the first verse in Genesis. I've talked about it several times to a lot of my people here, and the the way it's translated today, and you all know that listen to me, the way that we know about it today, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, is not the only translation. In the original writing, it was just the consonant letters. There were no vowels, and of course vowels change the meaning of the words. So you can put different vowels in there, and some other things can happen the way you divide up the words. But I want to hone in on, and God created the heavens and the earth. I'm going to hone in on the earth part here. The word is ha-eretz, eretz. And when you break that down in Notaricon, as I've done for many of you folks in the past, it doesn't mean just this earth. It means habitations, habitation, places. That's what it's talking about. And there is no set number of that. So it's a lot bigger than a lot of us realize, where there are these different places we could have been or whatever. My own personal opinion is that these interdimensions, we're all here at the same time right now. There are other dimensions, or whatever you want to call them, that exist at the same spot. I think Earth, this particular location, is our home. I think it is, for those that are here. I don't think anybody comes here that this isn't their home. And I don't think that when you leave, and I don't think you leave and go somewhere else. I think this was what we are supposed to inherit, but there are different iterations of it, I guess is the way I put it. So, at any rate, I just wanted to throw that in there. Thanks, Dan, for telling us about that. And I think we owe it to our friends to go through the chat. What do you think?
Yeah.
You think you want to do that? Okay, so the first one I want to read off here is from Crazy Lala, and I think she's speaking to you or he, I'm not sure. Says, "I'm sorry for the loss of your baby boy." That's so kind of you to say that. Pardon this noise. I'm going to bring this closer so I can see it. You'll probably see it in the picture here too.
Yeah, that was very nice. Thanks. Yeah, that was probably the worst thing I've ever gone through.
Absolutely.
It was the worst. I will never go through anything like that.
Liza Jean Williams asked the question, does alcohol invite demons?
Some people actually says that it does, and that's what the
toast
spirit.
Here. I think
I don't have any more alcohol.
It all depends on your frame of mind. I would say that Jesus drank wine, and people will say, well, it was pure of the grape. No, it wasn't, because they couldn't store it that way. It would naturally ferment. So I'm sorry. And then there's the story of the better wine at the end of the wedding, and the wine that he made at the wedding was better, later, when they usually brought out the bad wine at the end. So no, but there is a thing of too much is not good for you, all right? So you just have to, Liza Jean, the way I'd answer that is, if alcohol causes you to have problems, then you shouldn't deal with it. And moderation in all things.
Well,
right?
They say that when you black out, that's a lot of times when you can get demon possessed.
Yep.
So
right. Yeah, because you lose control.
It opens you
up. It opens up. So that's very true. Deplorical says, I've heard talk like this in the past, and I must say, be careful, please. Yeah, sure. Take just a step further and you can quickly find yourself in the occult. Well, what is the occult, Deplorical? And then you guys can answer this.
Which occult?
Yeah. First of all, there's several types. And as I pointed out a few days ago when I did that, I don't know how many videos back it was, I told you, remember when Jesus was talking to his disciples, he said, they came up to him and they said, why do you talk to those people like that? And he says, because the mysteries are only to be known by you, not them. So don't, be careful. I mean, sometimes we want to be so absolutely positive that anything we don't understand ourselves is evil, that we're willing to call it pagan. Pagan is anything other than yourself, right? Right? You're pagan. I'm not pagan, right? So just be careful not to judge others that you be not judged. What would you all say about that?
The definition of occult is actually hidden. So you can either have good hidden or bad hidden. Everything is duality here. If you think about it, right?
Government has a lot of hidden stuff, so
we don't want to talk about.
Could that be considered a cult? I mean, I'm just saying that word, being
government is mind control. So, yeah, hidden.
Yeah.
Mind control, hidden everything. So everything can be used for good, and everything can be used for bad. That's duality.
Yeah, don't we talk about that with people that want to take away our Second Amendment? They always want to say guns are evil. Guns aren't evil. Is a screwdriver evil? You can kill somebody with a screwdriver. Should we ban all screwdrivers? So it's right. Things are made to be used in a certain way. So it's using it in the righteous way that matters. And I've said that before, right? The righteous way and an unrighteous way. The righteous way is the right use of something. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you're trying to defend yourself, a screwdriver might not be a bad idea. Okay, we have another question here. Well, it's not a question, it's a statement, and I'm sending this out to you guys. Stormy613 says, I have seen auras around people. If it is broken, the person is sick or something is going to happen to the person. Do you guys?
I've heard that.
I've actually, with my studies that I did with auras, if there was a gap in the aura or if there was basically a dark space or a negative space, yes. Depending on where it is, too, is another thing. Whether it's near the head, it could mean there's mental instability going on. Near the torso, they could be having some indigestion, honestly. I mean, there's many ways to interpret that if you see a gap in an aura.
Good. See, that's why I wanted to get together, because I knew this would go in some other areas. Now, here's an interesting one here, and you'll like this. This is from Gloria Young. She says, I am a certified cocktail waitress. Spirits talk. Thank you, Gloria. That's a good one.
So,
As a matter of fact,
awesome.
I am actually working with a lady who manages a bar and is, she's a bartender. And I'm trying to get her to come on the show to talk about her experience, because I'm sure she has a wealth of stories that she can tell us. Those people have to be psychologists.
Spirits
and,
talk.
Oh, yeah, spirits talk.
That should be the title for the next nightcap, Spirit Talk.
Okay, let's see here. Nana52 says that he or she, I'm not sure which it is here, had 2 NDEs. So we have somebody on the chat here that's saying that they've had 2 near-death experiences. I can't say I've ever met anybody that's had that, but I have friends that have, and they're good friends with those people. And I should have taken the time to get to know those folks.
I have actually had several people come visit me after Morgan died and shared their experience about their near-death experience. Because one of the first things after everything sunk in, I was terrified where Morgan was and what.
Yeah.
Someone said Ouija boards, and
stay away from Ouija boards.
Don't touch those. You're only inviting the bad ones in. Right. Do not touch those.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Liza Jean Williams, I know Liza Jean Williams, by the way, is one of my moderators. That's why you see the wrench there.
Oh.
And I've also got Roosevelt Media and
AOC was a bartender.
Yeah, that was funny, Liza Jean. I'm actually way up further the list here, but she says AOC was a bartender. Look where she is now.
AOC answered a casting call of
that's
10,000 people.
That's right. She's an actress.
Yeah,
that's all.
She's an actress.
But earlier, Liza Jean Williams says, and this is to you, if Morgan finds the light, will he go to be with the God in heaven?
No, not right now. He has things, he's got things to do here, and he's got things to do behind the veil. He's worked with Navy for probably a good year. Like, he would take her, she would tell us stories of when she would wake up from being asleep or having a nap. She would tell us stories of him taking her and showing her like where he lived, and he lives on a ranch, not like where horses, and what she meant by that was lots of fields, and there were animals, but not like a farm ranch. Anyway, so he's helping her, and the last message that I got from my son actually was very interesting. I gotta be really careful how I put this in case if Navy's mom ever watches this. I don't want her to feel like I said stuff that I shouldn't have. So Morgan gave me information about his daughter to help her throughout her life. I know that my job right now is his daughter. I have to help her mom, raise her. So he's not He's not going anywhere for a little while. He's going to be around.
Good.
After he might. My little brother did. My little brother, after about 10 years and his stuff was done, we haven't seen him since.
Sometimes the concept of going to the God in heaven is a lot different with some Christians than I believe the reality really is.
The light is just a portal.
Yeah, I hesitate to say that anybody leaves. As a matter of fact, Malachi says it quite the difference, right? I've quoted that to you before, that God will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Seems like to me that this is about unifying people, not sending them off to some far reaches of the universe to strum a harp in the clouds somewhere. I mean, if that's heaven, I don't want to go there, frankly. That sounds extremely boring to me. But anyway, we have some other questions here I'd like to point out here. Rob Carpenter says, pour that girl some more wine. could you go get some wine for her? Thank you, Rob, for noticing that. He actually posted that quite some time ago. So, so we're going to get her some more wine. Thank you, Rob,
I'm drinking my
for
distilled water to go with my wine. That's hilarious.
Okay, eyes on the prize. Now this is where you're going to get eyes on the prize. You will get distinct disagreement with me on this one. Okay, but I'm going to let them answer it. Okay, he or she says, Scripture states, and you're going to have to show me where it says it. Okay, you post it on here where it says it.
That would be good.
Okay, Scripture states we cannot communicate with our deceased loved ones. The demons will use deceit to imitate the character of our loved ones. If you entertain those beliefs, you can be harassed by demons. What do you all have to say to that?
Yes and no.
They're half. Yeah, I would agree with that.
You have to be careful, but it's not. Some people are not actually going and trying to communicate with them. In my instance, I get my messages from mediums. They don't. Half of them have known me, and the other half haven't known me, and they've had to find out who is his mom. So that is not something evil, something wrong, something scriptural that we're not. He must have missed my explanation of necromancy.
Yeah, I know.
Don't you think?
I don't know Scripture as well as you guys do, but that I would agree with you that.
Well, we could pull it up on the Blue Letter Bible every time it says necromancy in the Bible and read the verses to him.
Again.
Well, a lot of people will quote their pastors or the people that are giving them sermons and not actually double check it themselves. I can tell you in the Hebrew, the Hebrews, when they wrote the Old Testament, they didn't look at it like there was anything but this life. Okay?
Thank you.
And then you had Ezekiel come along. Okay? So, at any rate, it depends upon where you are on your understanding level. Okay? Abraham said when his wife Sarah died, I need to bury my dead out of my sight. Okay? But what did Jesus say? He said that Abraham died without the promise, knowing what the promise would be, the end promise. He didn't achieve it. So don't be in such a big hurry to think that these things can't happen. As a matter of fact, DePorkel says something very interesting. She posts a lot on my channel. She says, there are no deceased loved ones. Our souls are immortal. Only our body dies.
Right.
I believe that.
Where are those who have moved on? And she says, I don't know. But where are those that have moved on? Where are they?
They're in the 7 layers of heaven and the 7 layers of hell.
And it's right here. I mean, there are these different dimensions right here. They're right here. This is where they can reach out and touch you if they want to.
So that's 14 dimensions if you count 7 up and 7 down. And then you got this one in the middle. Some of these old pictures, I wish I should have pulled it up for you, but it's an occult photo, and it's showing all the stars and it's showing the firmament, and then it shows the guy sticking his hand out through the other dimension.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what picture I'm talking about?
I think I do believe that. Yeah,
So I believe that's them painting a picture, explaining to us, hey, you can be in this dimension too,
To be kind of like childlike, visually I think of when you're blowing bubbles and you get a collection of bubbles,
Yeah.
and all the bubbles are touching in some way, but they all still have kind of their
Separate.
own shape.
Yeah,
shape,
that's
right?
exactly a good
Right.
way to look at
Yeah.
it.
So that's kind of how I visualize it as that where we are and where our souls go.
Well, and
whatnot.
then let's talk. You actually see it in the flower of life, right?
Absolutely.
They're all intertwined.
Yes.
They're none separate. They all
touch
overlap.
in some way. Yes,
Exactly.
they're all overlapping.
Now,
They're all
talk
in
about the flower
relationship.
of life. It's an ancient Egyptian symbol. So go ahead and
Well,
tell them about that.
I want to.
It's
I wanna say
actually-
it's older than
yeah, I
the
was
Egyptians.
gonna say it's older.
than the Egyptians.
It's
And the mitosis of the cell, even in the body, scientifically splits into the exact same shape of the flower of life. And how the Egyptians were able to draw that and understand the concept of that is amazing.
well through sacred geometry. Isn't it the same thing as the
yes.
um,
Part of the
Vesica
Merkaba.
Pisces?
Yes, the Vesica Pisces. Vesica. Yeah, I'm not pronouncing that right, but I know.
that's close.
you were
Yeah.
close enough. Everyone
But
knows
it's,
what you
it's
mean.
also the tree of life. It's in the same. It's all in the same symbol. There's so many things. What's the spiral?
It's the magic of the numbers, because you actually, so the Freemasons okay. It's the Hebrew language has 22 letters,
Right. Mhm.
including numbers. Am I saying that
They-
right?
They are the numbers. The letters.
Right,
are
right,
the
right. The
are the
letters are the
numbers as well,
and
yes.
there's 22 numbers.
Well,
20.
depending upon how you put them together, they can spell,
Oh,
endlessly.
okay.
A lot like
So you
Roman numerals.
numerology is like from 0 to 9,
Right.
right? So the Freemasons, what they do in that sacred geometry from the Vesica Pisces, they like you can have like 18 actually means 3. I don't know. I'm not really
Fibonacci
good.
spiral.
Yes, the Fibonacci. Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Good job.
Which is the Vesica.
What's the Vesica
yeah.
Pisces? Yeah.
But so somehow, spiral.
right. That's why I was like.
So, oh yeah, and I watched this video. So this is really interesting. So when you're born, you turn in the spiral
yeah.
when you go through the birth canal.
Yeah, you twist as you come out. And
Yep.
It's the
That's right,
same.
you do.
Yep.
It's
Same
the
idea.
same spiral.
Yeah.
It's the flower of life.
It's all connected. It's all part of that.
And your heart's actually a generator too. Did you know that the movement of the fluid through there is actually in such a way that you cause a slight magnetic field in the heart? So it's the same kind of thing. It's still a spiral idea.
That's why the pacemaker works.
Yeah. Oh, cool,
Well,
isn't
and
it?
some people think that your DNA is what your name is as a soul. So the way your DNA sounds. I'm not going to yodel, but
Oh,
You're talking about vibrations.
so, but your DNA makes that type
Yes.
of a sound,
Right.
and that's your name. So every single one of us, when we breathe, we regenerate the air. So the air that's around us has all this crap in it and all the carbon monoxide and whatever. But when we take a breath in, our DNA makes a vibration and it recharges that air as it comes in. And I find that really fascinating.
That's awesome.
That is.
Anyway, that was just a side spin there.
Well, no, I like that. See, that's where this gets interesting. Now, I
It
got
all
to throw this in.
matches.
Edelson James is a little buddy of mine. We've crossed swords a few times, but he's always got something good to say, as he already has today. And he's referring to my story about Bigfoot. And he says, I would have shot it, you would have been famous. Remember, I had blanks. I didn't
They don't do anything.
So there was no way I was going to be able to do that. Now, the next question I think is real good, and I think both of you could answer this. Wake Up says, can someone explain what the deal is with Rh negative blood, please?
Sure.
I
Okay.
think that's more you.
Okay.
But it seems like you've done a lot more research on it.
I have literally studied everything I can get my hands on, and I feel like a lot of times people gave me stuff from Morgan. Like they would call me and say, I don't know why, but I'm supposed to show you this. But anyway, so I have studied the Rh negative. I personally, from everything that I've studied, Atlantis, when it fell, apparently there were beings that got away. And they say that those beings were the ones that have the big, tall skulls.
Elongated.
And they had the red hair and the blue eyes and the blonde hair and the blue eyes. And they went all over. And you can actually go and look this up yourself. There were some in China. There were some here in Northern America. So the Chinese, the Asian, sorry, were worshiping them. This is where necromancy comes in. They were dead. When they died, they worshipped their bodies. And then in Peru and in North America, everywhere you can imagine. I personally believe that they are the ones that are the O negative bloodline. And I personally believe that Atlantis was Sodom and Gomorrah. And I personally believe that they were the hybrid humans. I believe, so like my little sister that can see spirits, she has special powers because of the bloodline.
As the bloodline.
So I don't have the O negative, the RH negative, but I have other things that I can do. Like I get dreams, and they come true. Like I told everyone that my granddaughter was going to be born and what she looked like, and everybody thought I was nuts. And then
And it was true.
and here comes this little girl with these big blue eyes. But
that makes me think about dreamscaping and the stuff that I would. Yeah.
So the O negative blood, also people will tell you it's the blood of the gods or of the kings and the queens. So if you go back to that scripture, Ephesians 6:12, it talks about the demonic and the princes and the principalities. Well, if you actually go and look up principalities and what it means online, Wikipedia or any of the other ones will tell you, well, I mean, it's a no-brainer. After I read the definition, I was like, well, duh. A prince is a principality.
Yeah.
A prince, a princess, a king, they're all principalities. They are the line of the fallen angels or the archons or whatever you want to call them, the reptilian, the Anunnaki, and I believe that's what their blood type is. And they have more power than we do as far, because they have the 25% bigger brain.
The extra access to the.
And they're supernatural.
Yeah.
The one thing that we have over them is that we have God on our side. So we are actually more powerful than them if you know you are and you have the faith that you can.
And that was the promise in the Garden of Eden,
Right.
that we would have the power to crush the head of the serpent. We actually have power over the serpent. And then people say, well, that's Jesus. Well, okay, all right. But
the blood of Jesus.
It's talking about what we will inherit, because remember, the scripture also says that Jesus is heir to all that the Father has, and that we are joint heirs with him. In other words, we will receive the same things. So anyway, another question James Talley wants to ask. I've seen this twice on here now. He says, Roy, the Nimitz encounter. Can you talk about the Nimitz encounter? Do you all know what that is? The Nimitz encounter, we've had a lot of these lately, James. The Navy has been bringing out more, and the Air Force have been bringing out more pictures of UFOs. The Nimitz encounter was when the flight squadron was up there and they saw a UFO.
Oh,
okay,
I just didn't know that was.
Yeah, that's
I know
what
that
it
it
is.
was called the Nimitz.
Yeah, so yeah, well,
okay.
and there've been a lot more of those than just that one.
Well, there was the movie star, what's his head, Goldie Hawn's husband. That there's a story. He didn't come out and tell the story till later.
Russell? Really?
Yeah, he was flying his airplane and a UFO flew
Oh,
alongside
Kurt
of him.
Russell, actually, that's right. I remember him saying
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. So it's,
cool.
and then that would go along with what Michelle's talking about with the ITEs,
Oh,
and they're
well-
coming in and out of.
Well,
this
and then you
dimension
have the White House. What was it, 1953, when the White House had all of those UFOs over it?
Oh, it was
And what was his
Project Blue
name?
Book. That's
No,
part of,
no,
wasn't
that's
that?
not Project Blue
No?
Book. No. The where the UFO. Let me see if I can look it up. 1953 White House.
That was way before Blue Book.
UFOs.
Blue Book was in the early 60s.
I used to be able to pull this up all like. Google hides a lot of stuff now, just so you know. I should have saved all of these links.
You should stop using Google.
Well, even if I use the other ones, when I need a double check, I do. But the thing is now it's hidden everywhere. So it was 1952 in Washington D.C. and there's actually pictures of this. I'm gonna see if I can find some links on it later, and I can send them to you.
Okay, I'd like that.
And
Yeah.
post them. But there were like 5 different UFOs over, and then what is it Eisenhower that started M12?
Majestic 12.
Majestic 12.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Well, anyway, whatever the president was at that time, I forget his dang name. I think it was Eisenhower.
It probably was Eisenhower. Was it something to do with the Area 51?
Well, then he flew to Las Vegas, out to Area 51, and
Tried to use the First Army to
and
go
they
in there,
no, and he went up in
Oh, I think that was Eisenhower.
yeah, Eisenhower,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's
that was
when he
Eisenhower.
started what is it called again?
Majestic 12.
Majestic 12. I don't know why I can't think of the name. But so what people have said is when the UFOs were over the White House, they were going to attack. Something happened. He ended up flying down to Area 51. He told them, I'm taking Air Force One by myself. There's no one is coming on this with me. And then apparently he went out and he went up in the UFO for like an hour, came back. He was pissed off and irritated when he got out of the UFO, is the story that the people have said. And then he literally started Majestic 12 after that. But
Well, it was also Eisenhower that talked about the looming technocracy that was going to be a danger to the United States.
well, so then after this incident, it's apparently Val, the alien,
oh yeah, Val,
was in there
yeah,
for
yeah.
a long time, and it was from that incident.
Okay, yeah, that
So-
makes sense.
Well, because
See-
they're infiltrate. That's who the shadow government is.
Right, exactly. They're the ones that are in control. Yeah, and the scientific elite is what Eisenhower called them, the scientific elite. I got to mention this one, Michael Lee. He's got to have a little levity, but I know he's
Oh,
serious.
he might be
He
my
says-
friend.
He says this scenery is better than normal. No offense, Roy.
Oh.
I'm sure he's talking about, about Michelle.
That's funny. I
So-
have a friend named Mike Lee, and he always gives me crap.
Well, today he's giving you a compliment. So. Well, no, it's not really a compliment. It's just that
No,
that's
it's
the
not a
truth.
compliment.
Well, it's a
You
compliment.
just like pulled that back real
Well,
fast.
no, because he's saying I'm usually out here, but now the scenery's better. So
Oh.
I'm saying, well, yeah, of course,
Gotcha. That's
okay.
funny.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna. Oh, this is interesting. Marjolin Hollis, this is just a comment she makes. She says, I saw a man in a white robe and felt scared at first, then felt protected. I was alone at home from school when I was 16. I believe it was Jesus. Yeah, those types of things happen. They especially to young people.
Mm-hmm.
My son has had, Jeremy, and I've sent a lot of you to his channel, he had not just visions and dreams, he had visitations.
Oh,
So these things really do occur.
Yeah. Na 52.
Okay.
The show of UFOs at the White House was in response to our use of our nuclear weapons. I did leave that part out. That is, in fact, I've heard many stories of them disarming.
Yeah, like I was
Yeah.
talking about at the beginning of the show, where something
Right.
came over and that's why the Russians had to get more yellow cake from Hillary Rodham Clinton.
So Operation Blue,
Blue Book.
I was thinking Operation Blue Beam. That's a whole nother story. But tell me what is Operation Blue Book?
Blue Book was more to try to investigate, UFO sightings, and also to cover them up as weather phenomenon or
Or the balloons.
natural occurring events or something like that. Like it was the sunlight over and Mars was in the sky, and so that's why you saw
Yeah,
this light.
that's
right.
Things
That's
like
what
that.
it
Yeah,
is.
Operation Blue
Well,
Book.
I can tell you something. And I've told this story before. I don't know if you two have heard it. Some of my listeners have. When I was young, junior high school age, I was fascinated with UFO. Yeah, I really was at one time. UFOs, I was fascinated with it. I had books, I had magazines, I talked to astronomers. Well, my mom worked at Goddard Space Flight Center, in Greenbelt, Maryland. And she knew, she watched me and how I was involved in this stuff. And one day she says, we're going to have a special guest for dinner tonight. And I think you'll really like it. It was one of the astrophysicists
Wow.
from Goddard. And he came and he had dinner with us, very elegant, very intelligent gentleman. I still remember what he looked like. And after dinner, he said, well, where do you study? And I said, well, back here, my desk is back here. So we went back and we sat at my desk. And he says, so what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, are UFOs real? Now, this is a scientist, an astrophysicist at Goddard Space Flight Center, and he says to me, yes, they're real. Some are ours, a lot of them aren't.
Yeah.
So, there you go. And I heard that. And it was safe for him to tell a 14-year-old because I don't even remember the guy's name.
Well, nobody's going to believe a 14-year-old
Exactly.
if you go and spout off.
Exactly. And I didn't. I think I may have told some friends or something, but it never went up.
Are you sure he was human?
Bigfoot. No. Maybe he was the guy's head I shook in Vegas 50 years later. I don't know.
I couldn't resist.
No, that's all right. You never know.
There is one picture out there of Val supposedly where he turned back into what he is really, and it's a picture from him standing. It's when Obama was in office. I'll have to see if I can find. It's a famous photo, and he looks like Prometheus, the bald-headed guys, and
Really?
yeah, he's got weird ears. It's like he's got holes, but anyway, somebody snapped a photo of him, and he was out, and he's a big dude, and
Pretty tall, right?
pretty tall,
Yeah.
pretty big, and he was. I can't remember if he was behind Obama when he was giving his speech or in front of him, but it's a
I wanna see
pretty.
that photo. That sounds
Let me see if I can find it while you guys chat for a minute.
I'm just going
What
through the
else you
chat
got
here,
over
looking to see if there's some people are saying that the picture that I showed there is a thing called, and I've heard of this before. I'm a photographer, okay, so I know what you're talking about. They say that it's a pareidolia.
We talked about that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there he
And
is.
yes, there are things there, but as I said, when you enhance that picture, it's not just the waves. I'm not going to put that up there because it's just too hard. But the fact of the matter is that what I was trying to show you is that I saw the orb first, then I saw the diffused area in the photo, and I didn't know what it was. There was no reason for it to be there. And there's nothing like that anywhere else in the photo. And when I enlarged it, I saw the face. When I enhanced it, the entire body is there. You can see everything. So, no, I'm familiar with those phenomenon. It's one of the things I was watching for because I was suspicious when I couldn't believe my eyes. All right. So, no, it's not one of those. Sorry, it's not. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I addressed that. Let's see if there's anything else. We're over 2 hours now, so we probably loud fluttering noise is distracting. Sorry. You people complain so much. Some of you that's all you can do is complain. I really, I don't know what your problem is.
I thought I was being loud every time I
Gee.
moved my feet and when I keep tapping my computer.
And I told you, that I don't have the best technical setup here. It'd be nice if we each had a microphone and we could all
Oh,
fill
here's
the
a good one.
sound
Here's
out
a good one.
We
The
can work on
UN
that.
wants to put us in a blender.
and be the ruler. Yeah.
Yeah, so the UN is actually, I believe, okay. One of their buildings is built upon Mount Hermon in Lebanon. So where the fallen angels, the 200 of them took a pact and decided to breed with the human females. So if you look up the UN building in Lebanon, you can actually see, it's guarded with machine gun guys all over. But that's pretty scary.
Really.
But anyway, it's really interesting if you do some research on it. Literally, there is like the old, probably the old, where they sacrifice the children and other stuff. What are you guys laughing
No,
at?
I'm sorry. I just saw something in the chat and I thought it was funny.
All right.
I saw someone showed up late and they said, "Do the show over."
Oh, do
So
the show
I thought that
over.
was kind of funny.
Oh, we could sit here and
You
talk
can play
for
it
hours.
back. Yeah, you can play
Yeah.
it back. This will be uploaded on YouTube shortly. But I have noticed that on my live streams, if I go much over 2 hours, all of a sudden
They
it
start
drops
to-
off.
yeah.
So we probably need to close this down. And there are a lot of other things that we could discuss. We could discuss the difference between Baphomet and Moloch, as Liza Jean Williams is bringing up here with the Baphomet statues going all around
They're the same
country.
thing.
And also the situation with trying to destroy the men and women relationships, which
Mhm.
we kind of talked about before. We could do all of that, but we kind of wanted to hone in on just the the unseen realities as we talked about. So let's make some ending statements here, and we'll let everybody go. Roosevelt, you're finally here. Howdy, nice to see you. All right, I appreciate you coming. Roosevelt and we've traded a lot of good things over the years. So, okay, closing remarks, I guess, and then we'll let everybody go. Dan, why don't you lead off? Closing remarks.
I wasn't prepared to do a closing remark, but was
That's
happy
what you
to-
call impromptu,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Put you on the
I
spot.
was happy to be here. Happy to be involved. I would love to get back into more paranormal investigations. So, yeah,
It would be fun.
it would be fun.
I've gone on a few ventures.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, abortion is modern day blood sacrifice to Moloch. Yes, whoever said that.
Yeah, say it real loud because they may not be able to hear.
Moloch worship is just okay. How did she say that? Let me find it.
And this is your closing remark?
No, abortion is modern day blood sacrifice to Moloch. Mary Cantu, yes, that is absolutely 100% true. The takeaway from this is that somebody said that there is no devil, whatever. There is a devil. There's actually 7 Satans, and then they have people under them. So when they say Satan or when they say devil, yeah, of course, there's not just one. There's actually many. So
I am Legion.
don't fall for this, the stupid thing of, well, there's no God and there's no Satan, because you're going to be mighty surprised one of these days when shit hits the fan. The takeaway is they're the ones that are trying to mess up everything on this earth. They've got all the humans that are following them, or hybrid humans, and then they have all the hybrid humans are the ones that are like the 300 in charge of the whole world. And then they've got all the humans that help them, that they give them wealth and everything too. So be careful with everything that you do. They're trying to work on all the females, get them to behave badly to the men. I'm going to just throw that out there. And what it's doing is it's breaking up the family. It's breaking up the glue. The family is the glue. So be good, do good, make good choices, and
Be kind to one another.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I'll end on that note. Thank you for coming, and we appreciate the fact that you all have come along. The count is never what it actually is. I find that out later. But the count's not what matters. What matters is that we've had a good discussion tonight, and I'd encourage you to send this out to some other people. Yeah, it'll cause some disturbances, but you know what? If you don't break a few eggs, you can't make an omelet. So thanks again for coming, and for those of you who've had these experiences, rest assured that it's your experience. No one else can take it from you. Only you can interpret what it is and make it meaningful, whether it was for good or for bad. So say your prayers. Let's hope that things turn around here very shortly. I will be back on to talk about some of the political situations that are going on right now, that are happening. And looks like our microphone is slowly starting to give out here too. It's starting to drop. So, but I will be back on as things progress over the next few weeks. I'm not certain anything specific is going to happen, but as you all know, we are requiring that something significant happen to the criminals in our government and elsewhere as soon as possible, because we are running out of time. And the best way for us to handle this is to however, we're not going to tell you how to figure out what or who God is. We're just going to say make friends with God and get as close to God as you can, and then the truth will come down and you'll finally figure out what that's all about. The important thing is that you appeal to this supernal, superior being and ask for the guidance to know the truth. And if your heart is right, it will happen. Thanks everybody for coming. we'll say goodbye for now, and we'll plan on doing this again at some point in the future, maybe on a little slightly different topic. So thanks for coming, Dan. I appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
along.
Thank you.
And Michelle, it's always a pleasure, you know,
Thanks.
right? Okay. All right, we're out here, everybody. Have a great night. Sleep tight. Sweet dreams.